Hello Year 7, welcome to your last remote learning lesson on Coraline. I don't know about you, but it has flown by. I hope you have all settled well into your routines. Don't let them slacken for this last one. Let's go out with a bang and let's do some fantastic work in this last lesson. Okay, my little helper, Victor, my talking cat, he does talk to me, has joined us for our last lesson today. That's because it's been sunny on the windowsill. He's a sunbather, okay? And most importantly, it's your last remote lesson, so make sure that work gets uploaded so we can see all that fancy work that you did. She's looking pretty horrible there, isn't she? She could do with a bit of moisturiser, I think. Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's crack on and let's see what we're going to do today. Date and title then, please. Coraline's lesson. Every day is a school day for Coraline. Okay, so make sure nice and neatly and underlined, please. So let's just recap. How did she escape from the other mother? They got into that tunnel, didn't they? Well, she planned it carefully. As teachers, we always like students who plan. So she planned it carefully. She knew what she was going to do. She was brave and persistent. What does that word mean? It means never give up. You always keep going, even when it gets hard. She tricked the other mother into opening the portal door. She knew her parents weren't at the other side of that door, but she told the other mother she thought they were, so that the other mother would open the door. That's the only way she was going to get that door open so she could get out. And then the poor cat, she threw the cat at her to distract her. I don't know what to think about that. Okay. Right, underneath your title, I would like you to write this new vocabulary. There are two words that are going to crop up in the bit that we're going to read today, and I want to make sure that you understand them. So the first word is yielding. Okay, so I want you to write that word down and the definition. And yielding means something is giving away under pressure. It's flexible. So if you put pressure on it, it moves and it flexes. You can yield under pressure. Okay. Then she describes something later on as robin's egg blue. You may have heard of something called duck egg blue. So some birds' eggs are blue. Blackbirds' eggs are blue. It's a specific shade of blue. There's a little picture there of some robin's eggs. Okay, so I want you to pause the video and write that vocabulary down neatly in your exercise book with a definition next to it, please. Okay, so now we're going to read to the end of the chapter. It was colder in the corridor, like stepping down into a cellar on a warm day. The cat hesitated for a moment, then, seeing the other mother was coming towards them, it ran to Coraline and stopped by her legs. Coraline began to pull the door closed. It was heavier than she imagined a door could be, and pulling it closed was like trying to close a door high against a wind. Then she felt something from the other side starting to pull against her. Shut, she thought. Then she said out loud, "Come on, please." And she felt the door begin to move, to pull closed, to give against the phantom wind. Suddenly she was aware of other people in the corridor, with her. She could not turn her head to look at them, but she knew them without having to look. "Help me, please," she said, "all of you." The other people in the corridor, 3 children, 2 adults, were somehow too insubstantial to touch the door, but their hands closed about hers as she pulled on the big iron door handle, and suddenly she felt strong. "Never let up, miss. Hold strong, whispered a voice in her mind. "Pull, girl, pull," whispered another, and then a voice that sounded like her mother's, her own mother, her real, wonderful, maddening, infuriating, glorious mother, just said, "Well done, Coraline," and that was enough. The door started to slip closed, easily as anything. "No!" screamed a voice from beyond the door, and it no longer sounded even faintly human. Something snatched at Coraline, reaching through the closing gap between the door and the Doorpost. Coraline jerked her head out of the way, but the door began to open once more. "We're going to go home," said Coraline. "We are. Help me." She ducked the snatching fingers. They moved through her then. Close ghost hands lent her strength that she no longer possessed. There was a final moment of resistance, as if something were caught in the door, and then, with a crash, the wooden door banged closed. Something dropped from Coraline's head height to the floor. It landed with a sort of scuttling thump. "Come on," said the cat. "This is not a good place to be in. Quickly." Coraline turned her back on the door and began to run as fast as was practical through the dark corridor, dragging her hand along the wall to make sure she didn't bump into anything or get turned around into the darkness. It was an uphill run, and it seemed to her that it went on for a longer distance than anything could possibly go. The wall she was touching seemed warm and yielding now, and she realised it felt as if it was covered in a fine downy fur. It moved as if it were taking a breath. She snatched her hand away from it. Winds howled in the dark. She was scared she would bump into something, and she put her hand out for the wall once more. This time what she touched felt hot and wet, as if she put her hand in somebody's mouth, and she pulled it back with a small wail. Ugh. Her eyes had adjusted to the dark. She could half see as faintly glowing patches ahead of her. 2 adults, 3 children. She could hear the cat too, padding in the dark in front of her. And there was something else, which suddenly scuttled beneath her feet, nearly sending Coraline flying. She caught herself before she went down, using her own momentum to keep moving. She knew that if she fell in that corridor, she might never get up again. Whatever that corridor was older by far than the other mother. It was deep and slow, and it knew that she was there. Then daylight appeared, and she ran towards it, puffing and wheezing. "Almost there," she called encouragingly, but in the light she discovered that the wraiths had gone and she was alone. She did not have time to wonder what had happened to them. Panting for breath, she staggered through the door and slammed it behind her with the loudest, most satisfying bang you can imagine. Coraline locked the door with the key and put the key back into her pocket. The black cat was huddled in the farthest corner of the room, the pink tip of its tongue showing its eyes wide. Coraline went over to it and crouched down. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry I threw you at her, but it was the only way to distract her enough to get us all out. She would never have kept her word, would she?" The cat looked up at her, and then it rested its head on her hand. Licking its fingers with its sandpapery tongue, it began to purr. "Then we're friends?" said Coraline. She sat down on one of her grandmother's uncomfortable armchairs, and the cat sprang up into her lap and made itself comfortable. The light that came through the picture window was daylight, real golden late afternoon daylight, not a white mist light. The sky was a robin's egg blue. Coraline could see trees, and beyond the trees green hills, which faded on the horizon into purples and greys. The sky had never seemed so sky. The world had never seemed so world. Coraline stared at the leaves on the trees and at the patterns of light and shadow on the cracked bark of the trunk of the beech tree outside the window. Then she looked down at her lap, at the way that the rich sunlight brushed every hair on the cat's head, turning each white whisker to gold. Nothing, she thought, had ever been so interesting. And, caught up in the interestingness of the world, Coraline barely noticed that she had wriggled down and curled, cat-like, in her grandmother's uncomfortable armchair, nor did she notice when she fell into a deep and dreamless sleep. But that is not the end of the book. However, let's just have a look. What I want us to think about is, our title is Coraline's Lesson. I want us to think what she's learned. What has she learned now she's got away from the other mother? So, Question for you to think about. What was Coraline's life like before her adventure started? I'm going to show you some pictures to make you think, Year 7. Okay. I know it's not Coraline, but imagine that's Coraline. How did Coraline feel about life before her adventure started? What kind of things did Coraline want out of life? What did people around Coraline make her feel? Look at the name on the badge, that's a clue for you. What about her parents? How was her relationship with her parents? How did her parents treat her? What about what they let her do and what they didn't let her do? What about when she went outside? What was the world like? And what about maybe how she was treated? They weren't particularly poor or anything, but you know, how did they look after her? Okay, so there's some pictures there, and you can always come back to this little bit in the video when I show you the next screen. Okay, so I want you to do just a short paragraph telling me, before Coraline's perilous adventure, remember that word we looked at before, I want you to tell me what her life and her world was like. And I've got some sentence starts and some key vocabulary for you. Okay, so if I bring these up for you, we have got, before Coraline's perilous adventure, her life and world was. Each day she was, or she felt, something about her parents and what she asked for. And then I've got in here our key vocabulary that you can use. You can use other words of your own. So using those sentence starts, and you can always just go back in the video to the pictures to help you, I want you to describe to me what Coraline's life and world was like before she went on that adventure, before she went through that door. Okay, so I want you to pause the video at this point and use those sentence starts and the key vocabulary to complete that short paragraph, and then press play when you're ready. Okay, well done, Year 7. So now let's look afterwards. What's Coraline's world like now she has returned? Now we've not got pictures this time, we've got some extracts from the book. Okay, so first of all, remember we had a cross through, a room with some furniture in. Now look what she's doing. She's sitting down in her grandmother's uncomfortable armchairs. Look at the golden late afternoon daylight. Golden daylight. The sky is a robin's egg blue. The trees on the green hills and the horizon is purple. Very colourful, isn't it? She looks at the leaves on the trees and the patterns of light and shadow. How many times a day do you sit and stare out of the window and admire the leaves on the trees and the patterns of light and shadow? I bet you don't do that very often, do you? No, I think maybe you should. What does she think about those things? I think she likes them. She appreciates them. Because look what she says. Nothing, she thought, had ever been so interesting. She's caught up in the interestingness of the world. And then look how she shapes herself. She's curled cat-like. My cat's not curled at the moment, but he does do that. When he does that, it means he's very, very happy and content. And he feels safe and secure. And he's also in a deep, deep sleep and he's purring away. Okay, so you can always come back to this bit in a moment if you want. Oh, what we've now got is, so from returning from her adventure, what is her world like now? How has it changed since she has come back? So your starting sentence now is, since returning from her adventure, her world is. Tell me how she feels about the world differently. What has she learned? And what does she appreciate? You could say, I think Coraline has learned the lesson that. And then we've got some key vocabulary for you. So we've got the words colourful, we've got the words bright. We've got the word vibrant, which means lots of different coloured, lots of bright different colours, just like the picture that we've got there. We've got content, which means happy with what you've got, not wanting lots of different things. We've got relaxed, like a curled cat. Nature, and we've got beautiful. Okay, so I want to pause the video at this point, and I want you to see if you can write a short paragraph using those sentence starts and that key vocabulary, telling me what Coraline's world is like now since she's returned. Then I want you to press play when you're done. Well done. Okay, Year 7, I did one, so I looked at what she was like and then what she's like when she's come back, so you can see what I wrote. See if you got any similar ideas. So, before Coraline's perilous adventure, her life and world was dull. Each day she was bored and frustrated, so I've put my key vocabulary in blue, because her parents were busy working from home. She felt ignored by them as they told her to go and play instead of spending time with her. Even when she was made lunch by her mother, there was just mouldy cheese and an old tomato. I wouldn't want that for my lunch. Coraline was forbidden from doing exciting things like using her grandmother's furniture, and instead had to play outside in the grey, misty weather. Not very nice. Now, since returning from her adventure, her world is colourful and bright, and she notices the vibrant colours of nature outside. She feels interested in the small, beautiful details of the world and doesn't need entertaining with games and things. She has learned that she can be happy just being with her family and nature. I think Coraline has learned the lesson that it's not things that make her happy, but being with her family and being relaxed and content that is important in life. And I hope you agree with that, Year 7. Okay. So that is the end of Coraline for now, but we have definitely not reached the end of the book. There is more to come, and you will be picking that up when we see you on Tuesday, or as soon as your lesson is after Tuesday, Year 7. Okay, stay safe, and I can't wait to see you back in Fernside when I'm up there on site. Well done for all your hard work. I've loved making these videos and I hope you've enjoyed them, and we will definitely see you soon.